The Grand Hall of Echoes hadn't witnessed such a gathering in 3 centuries. Elara pressed her trembling spine against the cold marble pillar, her fingers clutching her cloak so tightly her knuckles turned white. She shouldn't have come. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to disappear back into the shadows where she'd hidden for 12 agonizing years. But tonight, everything would end. Her eyes found him across the sea of bodies, King Theron Ashenblade, the Alpha of Silvermoor. Even from this distance, the sight of him stole her breath. He was magnificent, dark hair threaded with silver, a jawline carved from granite, shoulders that carried the weight of an entire kingdom. But it was his eyes, those amber eyes that haunted her dreams, eyes that hadn't held warmth in over 4 decades. 43 years, to be exact. That's how long ago his first mate, Celestia, had died in his arms on a blood-soaked battlefield. Have you ever loved someone who couldn't see you? Someone who looked right through you as if you didn't exist? Drop a broken heart in the comments if you felt invisible to the one person you wanted to notice you most. What no one in that hall knew, what Elara had kept buried deep in her chest for 12 endless years, was the truth that was slowly killing her. Theron Ashenblade was her fated mate. She discovered it on her 20th winter. She'd been a newly appointed healer in the castle's medical wing, insignificant, forgettable. He passed her in a corridor, his attention focused on some urgent matter of state, and the bond had ignited asterisk inside her chest like wildfire. The recognition had nearly brought her to her knees. But she'd told no one. Who would believe that fate had bound a common healer to a king who'd publicly sworn, again and again, that he would never take another mate? So Elara had waited, and suffered, and slowly died. Because here's the cruel truth about an unaccepted mate bond. The one who recognizes it first bears the weight alone. And if the other half never acknowledges it, that weight will eventually crush you. Elara was 20 weeks away from death, maybe less. Her healing magic had dimmed to almost nothing. Her body had withered, aged a decade in the past 2 years alone. The other healers whispered about her mysterious wasting illness, but Elara knew the truth. She was fatting because the man she loved refused to feel anything at all. Wolves of Silvermoor, Theron's voice cut through the crowd like a blade. I have called you here to witness an ending. Elara's nails bit into her palms, so hard she drew blood. For 217 years, I have ruled this kingdom alone. His jaw tightened, a muscle twitching beneath his skin. I have watched generations rise and fall. I have led you through wars that would have destroyed lesser realms. The crowd held its collective breath. The council has urged me, for decades to take a new mate, to produce an heir, to secure the bloodline. Elara's heart thundered against her ribs. I have refused. I will always refuse. No, please. There will be no queen in Silvermoor, no heir of my body. The words landed like hammer blows. Elara felt something crack inside her chest, not her heart, but something deeper. The bond itself, fracturing under the weight of his rejection. Instead, Theron continued, his voice cold and final, I am nomming my successor from outside my bloodline. The crown will pass to... He stopped. Mid-sentence. His eyes, scanning the crowd with practiced detachment, suddenly locked onto her. The moment your eyes meet across a crowded room and everything changes. Have you experienced that moment when time stops and the world narrows to just one person? Tell us your story in the comments below. Elara felt the impact, like a physical blow. The bond, dormant for so long, starved and dying, suddenly roared to life with savage, impossible intensity. Heat flooded her body. Her vision blurred. Her mark, the phantom claiming bite that had appeared 12 years ago on her hip, burned like molten metal pressed against her skin. And across the hall, she watched King Theron Ashenblade's face shatter. His nostrils flared. His pupils dilated until his eyes were more black than amber. And for the first time in 43 years, something other than grief flickered across those features. Terror. He felt it, After all this time, after 12 years of her silent suffering, he finally felt the bond. The hall had gone deathly silent. Thousands of wolves stood frozen, sensing something momentous, something asterisk wrong in their alpha king's sudden stillness. Elara couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to run, but his gaze held her pinned like a butterfly to a board. He looked absolutely terrified. "My king," High Elder Corvain's oily voice shattered the moment. "You were announcing your successor." Theron's chest heaved. Elara watched him fight for control, watched the internal war play out across his face. Instinct versus will, recognition versus denial. Then his walls slammed back into place. A momentary distraction. His voice emerged flat, dead, nothing more. The words struck Elara like a fist to the sternum. She staggered against the pillar, her hand flying to her chest, where the bond screamed asterisk in protest. Nothing more. As I was saying, Theron tore his gaze away from her with visible effort, addressing the crowd with brutal determination. "The crown will pass to Lord Victor Darkmoor upon my death." The Darkmoor family stepped forward to accept the honor, a powerful noble house that had been positioning themselves for exactly this moment for decades. But Elara barely registered any of it. He had felt her, he had asterisk recognized her, and he had chosen to reject her anyway. She watched him clasp forearms with Lord Victor, watched him accept congratulations from nobles who'd spent years manipulating him toward this outcome, watched him smile asterisk, actually smile, as if he hadn't just condemned his true mate to death. Her mark exploded with agony so intense, she nearly cried out. Theron's head snapped toward her. For one heartbeat, their eyes met again. And beneath the carefully constructed ice in his gaze, she saw something that asterisk destroyed her completely. Anguish. He knew exactly what he was doing to her, knew that his rejection would kill her within weeks. And he was choosing to let it happen anyway. Because facing another bond, risking another loss, terrified him more than her death ever could. When is self-protection actually selfishness? When does guarding your own heart become cruelty to someone else? This is the question that haunts this story. What do you think? Was Theron justified in his fear, or was this the ultimate betrayal? Let us know in the comments. Elara ran. She pushed through the crowd blindly, ignoring startled protests, her vision blurred with tears. The bond in her chest felt like it was being torn apart with heated claws. Behind her, she thought she heard someone call out, a voice deep and desperate, crying a name she'd never told him. But she didn't stop. The servants' corridors were blessedly empty. Elara stumbled through them, one hand braced against the stone walls, the other pressed to the mark that hadn't stopped burning. He knew her name. She'd never spoken to him directly, never introduced herself in 12 years of service in his castle. Yet when she fled, she could have sworn she heard him call for her. It didn't matter. None of it mattered anymore. In her small chamber, Elara packed with trembling hands. A few dresses, her mother's ring, the medicinal herbs she'd need to slow the fatting, to buy herself a few more months of agonizing existence. You cannot run from this. Elara spun, her heart seizing. Marcus, the king's first beta, stood in her doorway. His weathered face was grim, his eyes shadowed with something that looked almost like pity. "I'm not running," Elara said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm removing a distraction." "You are his mate." The words hung between them, heavy and terrible. "I am asterisk nothing to him." Elara turned back to her packing, her hands shaking. "He made that abundantly clear." "He's been a fool for 43 years, Marcus stepped into the room. "But that doesn't change what you are to each other." "What we are to each other is asterisk finished." Elara cinched her bag closed, her voice cracking. "He chose his grief over me. He chose House Darkmoor over me. He chose asterisk death over me." She met Marcus's gaze without flinching. "I will not stay to watch him celebrate that choice." The servants' gate was unguarded, every wolf in the castle having gone to witness the ceremony. Elara slipped through it like a ghost, her cloak pulled tight against the winter wind. She didn't allow herself to look back at the obsidian keep. She didn't allow herself to imagine Theron realizing she was gone. She simply walked into the darkness, each step taking her further from the mate who had chosen to let her die rather than risk loving her. Behind her, somewhere in the castle she'd called home for over a decade, a howl split the night. It was a sound of such raw devastation that wolves across the capital stopped their celebrations to listen. A sound that spoke of loss and rage and terrible, terrible regret. Elara heard it. She kept walking, but she couldn't stop the tears that froze on her cheeks, or the traitorous part of her heart that whispered, "Perhaps you should turn back." She didn't turn back, and by morning, she had vanished from Silvermoor entirely. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from someone who won't fight for you. Have you ever had to leave someone you loved because staying was killing you? Share your strength in the comments. Your story might help someone else find the courage to choose themselves. The village of Thornhaven had grown accustomed to its strange new healer. Elara, now calling herself Wren, lived in a cottage at the edge of the Whisperwood. Small, isolated, exactly what she needed. The villagers whispered about her condition. She caught their pitying glances when she walked through the market square. She knew what they saw. A woman who'd aged a decade in 6 months, hollowed cheeks, hair faded from rich chestnut to dull gray, hands that trembled when she mixed her tinctures. The fatting was accelerating. She hoped distance from Theron would slow the bond's deterioration. Instead, it seemed to hunger more fiercely with each passing day, as if punishing her for fleeing. And worst of all, she could still feel him. The mark on her hip pulsed with heat at unpredictable intervals, sometimes gentle, sometimes agonizing, and when the pain came, she'd catch flickers of emotion that didn't belong to her. Rage, despair, a loneliness so vast it threatened to swallow everything. Even across the breadth of the kingdom, the incomplete bond continued to transmit fragments of his inner world. Elara hated that she couldn't block it out. Hated even more that part of her treasured those fragments, hoarding them like a miser hoards gold. She was pathetic, but she was also determined to spend whatever time she had left doing something meaningful. So she delivered bobbies, set broken bones, brewed remedies for winter coughs. Every night, she lay in her narrow bed and felt the ghost of a mate who had chosen to let her die. The traders arrived on the first warm day of spring. Mistress Wren, young Bram came running, his face flushed with excitement. News from the capital. Elara kept her expression neutral despite the sudden lurch in her chest. What news could possibly concern us here, child? The king, Bram's eyes were wide. They say he's gone mad asterisk. The pestle slipped from Elara's fingers, clattering against the table. Mad? Bram nodded vigorously. The traders say he's torn apart the castle searching for something. He's dismissed his entire council. Lord Darkmoor has been arrested and his house placed under guard. The world tilted beneath Elara's feet. What is he searching for? No one knows. Bram leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. They say he barely sleeps. He sent wolves to every corner of the realm asking questions about someone but he won't speak her name. Elara's heart hammered against her ribs. And there's more, Bram continued. The kingdom is suffering crops withering, livestock sickening. The wolves feel something wrong in their bond with the alpha, but none can explain it. The incomplete mate bond wasn't just destroying her, it was destroying him. And through him, poisoning the entire kingdom. 3 days later, Marcus found her. How did you find me? Elara asked flatly when she saw the first beta waiting outside her cottage. I've been searching since the night you disappeared. Marcus's amber eyes swept over her diminished form, grief flickering across his features. The fatting has progressed faster than I feared. You came to watch me die. I came to bring you home. Elara laughed bitterly. I have no home. The king made that abundantly clear. The king, Marcus said carefully, Has not been himself for a very long time. Something in his tone made Elara pause. What do you mean? Marcus glanced around, then gestured toward her cottage door. What I have to tell you cannot be overheard. Against her better judgment, Elara led him inside. Marcus didn't waste time. House Darkmoor has been poisoning Theron for over 40 years. The words landed like a hammer strike. What? Not enough to kill him, Marcus's jaw tightened. Just enough to dampen his emotions, to prevent him from forming new attachments. They've had a healer in their employ since before Celestia died, adding compounds to his wine, his food, even the candles in his chambers. Elara's mind reeled. The grief that never faded, the emotional numbness, the refusal to consider a new mate. All artificially maintained. The Darkmoors needed him isolated, Marcus continued, his voice hardening. They needed him to believe his inability to move forward was natural asterisk, a consequence of losing his first mate. Your appearance threatened everything. My appearance. A true mate bond cannot be suppressed indefinitely, not even by their poison. Marcus stepped closer. When Theron saw you at the ceremony, the bond broke through decades of chemical suppression. For a moment, he felt everything they'd stolen from him. His expression softened. That's why he rejected you, Elara. Not because he chose grief over you, because the poison was still in his system, and it twisted his recognition into terror. He felt the bond, but his mind couldn't process it correctly. Elara's legs gave out. She sank into a chair, gasping for breath. Then his rejection wasn't his true will. 3 days after you fled, the compulsion to find you became so overwhelming that Theron finally submitted to examination by a healer outside Darkmoor influence. Marcus withdrew a letter from his coat. We discovered traces of the poison within hours. He handed her the letter. He knows everything, and he's been tearing the kingdom apart trying to find you ever since. What would you do if you discovered that the person who hurt you most was being manipulated the entire time? That their cruelty wasn't truly theirs? Does it change anything? Does it excuse the pain? Comment below. This is where the story gets complicated. But there's more, Marcus said grimly, withdrawing another paper. Elara took it with numb fingers. The seal bore the Darkmoor serpent. The false mate has been located. She will be eliminated before she can be returned to the capital. The bloodline must be secured. Assassins, Elara breathed. Already dispatched. Marcus's eyes were hard. I've been racing them here, praying I'd arrive first. Elara, you must come with me. Theron is perhaps 2 days behind me following the bond, but the Darkmoor killers could be here within. A howl rose from the Whisperwood. Then another. And another. Elara's mark exploded with searing pain, and through the bond came a surge of protective fury, so intense it nearly knocked her unconscious. He had felt the threat. He was coming. Through her window, Elara watched dark shapes emerge from the tree line. Wolves, a dozen of them, moving toward her cottage with predatory purpose. The Darkmoors had found her first. The first wolf crashed through her door before Elara could draw breath. Marcus shifted instantly, his human form exploding into a massive gray wolf that intercepted the attacker mid-leap. Run, Marcus's voice tore through her mind. The back window. But there was nowhere to run. More wolves were circling the cottage, covering every escape route. A second wolf broke through the side window, glass exploding inward. It lunged for her throat. Elara raised her hands instinctively, and golden light erupted from her palms like captured sunlight. The attacking wolf yelped as the energy struck it, not wounding but repelling, throwing it backward through the ruined window with tremendous force. Elara stared at her hands in shock. Her healing magic had never manifested like this. It wasn't supposed to be a weapon. But the bond was changing her. The connection to an alpha king, even incomplete, had transformed her gifts into something fiercer. More wolves poured through the broken doorway. Stay back, Elara commanded, golden light flickering between her fingers. The assassins hesitated. A slow clap echoed from the doorway. Elara's blood turned to ice as a woman stepped through the wreckage, beautiful in the cold way of mountain peaks. Silver hair, pale blue eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. Seraphine Darkmoor. How touching, Seraphine drawled. The little healer has claws after all. She gestured lazily, and her wolves spread out, surrounding Elara completely. Your father is in chains, Elara said through gritted teeth. Your house has fallen. My father was a * fool who moved too slowly. Seraphine's smile sharpened. I won't make his mistakes. Once you're dead, the bond will shatter what remains of the king's sanity. She raised her hand. A slender dagger coated in sickly iridescence gleamed in her grip. Wolf's bane and moonshade, Seraphine explained pleasantly. One cut is all it takes. Even your pretty magic can't heal what this poison destroys. Elara's light flickered. Her strength was fading fast. Then come and try, she whispered. Seraphine's arm drew back to throw. And the world exploded. The cottage wall * disintegrated as something massive crashed through it. A wolf so large it seemed to fill the entire space. Fur black as starless midnight, eyes blazing with amber fire that cast dancing shadows across the ruined room. Elara had never seen anything so terrifying. Or so beautiful. Theron had arrived. Comment DRAVEN if you're ready for what happens next, because the Alpha King just arrived, and he is furious. The Alpha King moved like death itself. His jaws closed around the nearest assassin before the wolf could react, crushing bone with a single savage bite. He flung the body aside and lunged for the next, his massive form a blur of lethal grace. Seraphine screamed orders, but terror had already broken her wolves' discipline. They scattered before their king's fury like leaves before a hurricane. Seraphine herself turned to flee. She made it 3 steps before Theron's wolf form slammed into her, pinning her to the ground with one enormous paw. The poisoned dagger skittered across the floor. Call them off, * his mental voice was a thunderclap of authority. Now. Seraphine let out a sharp whistle. The remaining assassins melted back into the forest. Theron held her pinned for a long moment, his amber eyes promising violence. Then, with visible effort, he stepped back and shifted. The wolf dissolved into man. Elara had watched Theron from a distance for over a decade. She'd memorized every line of his face, every gesture, every expression. But she'd never seen him like * this. Wild-eyed and breathing hard, his ceremonial composure shattered completely. He looked at her, and the Alpha King of Silvermoor fell to his knees. You're alive, his voice cracked on the words. I felt you fatting every day. I felt you slipping further away, and I couldn't find you. I couldn't. He broke off, his hands reaching toward her but stopping just short of contact, as if he feared she might shatter. Or feared she might reject his touch, as he had rejected her. Theron, she whispered. The sound of his name on her lips seemed to undo him completely. A shudder ran through his powerful frame. I'm sorry, his voice was barely audible. I'm so sorry, Elara, what I did to you, what I let them do. You were poisoned, her own voice emerged strange to her ears. Marcus told me. That's not an excuse. He finally looked up at her, and she saw that his amber eyes were bright with unshed tears. 40 years. They stole 40 years of my life, and I let them because it was easier to feel * nothing than to risk feeling too much. His jaw tightened. And then you appeared, and the bond burned through everything they'd built, and I was so terrified that You rejected me. The words hung between them like a blade. Yes, he didn't flinch from the accusation. I felt you, Elara. For one moment, I felt * everything you were. Everything we could be, and I was so afraid of losing you the way I lost Celestia that I convinced myself pushing you away was protection. His hand finally touched her face, trembling fingers brushing her hollow cheek. I've been a fool, a coward, and you've paid the price for my weakness. His thumb traced the shadows beneath her eyes. Can you ever forgive me? Forgiveness isn't about excusing what someone did. It's about choosing whether to carry the weight of their betrayal forward. Would you forgive him? Could you? Tell us in the comments, because this moment right here is where everything changes. Elara wanted to rage at him, wanted to scream about the 12 years of silent longing, the 6 months of fatting, the lifetime of love she'd poured into a bond he'd tried to deny. Instead, she leaned into his touch and let the tears fall. "I've been waiting for you," she said softly. "All this time, even when I thought you thrown me away, even when I was dying, I never stopped." She couldn't finish. Theron pulled her into his arms. For a long moment, they simply held each other. Elara pressed her face against his chest, breathing in his scent, pine and wood smoke, and something wild that resonated with the deepest part of her soul. His arms wrapped around her with desperate gentleness, as if he could physically hold her together. The bond between them pulsed with warmth, incomplete still, but no longer starving. Finally, Theron pulled back just enough to look at her face. "You're fatting." It wasn't a question. His fingers traced her grayed hair, her sharpened cheekbones. "How long do you have?" Elara didn't look away. Weeks, perhaps less. A sound escaped his throat, something between a growl and a sob. "I did this to you. The Darkmoors. I did this." His hands cupped her face with aching tenderness. "I should have fought harder against the poison, should have questioned why I felt nothing for 40 years, should have known that fate wouldn't have bound us if I was truly meant to remain alone." His forehead pressed against hers. "You've been suffering since the moment the bond ignited, haven't you? 12 years of carrying this alone." Her breath hitched. "I thought you'd never feel it. I thought I'd die loving someone who would never even know my name." "I knew your name." His confession was barely audible. "From the first year, I found myself asking about the new healer in the medical wing, watching for you without understanding why. The bond was fighting the poison even then, trying to make me see." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry it took me so long." "You're here now." Elara pulled back to meet his eyes. "That's what matters." "Is it enough?" The vulnerability in his question pierced her heart. "After everything I've done, everything I failed to do, is there anything left between us worth saving?" Elara thought about the years of silent longing, the months of agonized exile, the nights spent feeling his grief bleed through the bond while her own body slowly died. Then she thought about the howl she'd heard as she fled the castle, the desperate searching that had torn his kingdom apart, the king on his knees before her, weeping, begging for forgiveness. "I spent 12 years loving you from a distance," she said quietly. "I'd like the chance to love you up close." Theron made a broken sound and kissed her. The kiss was not gentle. There was too much pain between them for gentleness, too much lost time, too much grief, too much desperate need finally finding its release. His mouth claimed hers with a ferocity that stole her breath, and Elara responded in kind, her fingers tangling in his silver-streaked hair. The bond surged between them like lightning. Not complete, not yet, but awakening, unfurling like a flower finally given sunlight. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Theron's eyes were blazing gold. "I should complete the bond now," he said raggedly. "Before you fade further, before." "No." He stilled, confusion and hurt flickering across his features. Elara touched his face gently. "Not here, not with Seraphine's assassins still in these woods and the kingdom in chaos." She managed a small smile despite her exhaustion. "I didn't wait all these years to have our bonding interrupted by politics." A rough laugh escaped him. "You're going to be a troublesome queen." "Probably." He helped her to her feet, and she swayed slightly as the world spun. "What happens now?" Theron's expression hardened. "Now we return to Silvermoor. Seraphine will stand trial with her father, and every wolf in the realm will know that their true queen has been found." Behind them, Marcus had shifted back to human form and was binding Seraphine's hands with silver cord. The Darkmoor heir glared at Elara with murderous hatred. "This changes nothing," Seraphine spat. She's half dead already. Even if you complete the bond, she'll never survive the... Theron moved so fast Elara barely saw it. One moment he stood beside her. The next, his hand was wrapped around Seraphine's throat. "Finish that sentence," he said softly, "and I will end your bloodline tonight." Seraphine's mouth snapped shut. Elara placed her hand on Theron's arm. "She's not worth it. Save your fury for the trial." For a long moment, Theron didn't move. Then slowly, his grip loosened. "For you," he murmured. "Only for you." They traveled through the night, Elara cradled against Theron's chest on his black warhorse. She drifted in and out of consciousness, the fatting accelerating since the attack, her body burning through its final reserves. "Stay with me," Theron murmured against her hair every time her eyes fluttered closed. "We're almost there, just hold on." She tried. But the darkness was so tempting, and she was so tired. Dawn broke as they crested the final hill overlooking Silvermore's capital. Elara forced her eyes open and felt her heart stutter. Smoke rose from the city. "No," Theron's arms tightened around her. "No, this can't be." Marcus spurred his horse forward, returning minutes later with a face carved from stone. "Seraphine's brother, Aldrich. He's seized the obsidian keep in our absence. He's claiming you've been enchanted by a witch and must be freed from her influence." "How many support him?" Theron demanded. "Perhaps a third of the noble houses. The rest are either loyal to you or waiting to see which way the wind blows." Marcus's jaw tightened. "He has taken hostages." Elara's blood ran cold. "Isolde," she whispered, "the head healer who trained me." "Is among them," Marcus confirmed. "Aldrich has announced that if you attempt to retake the keep, he'll execute them all." "He thinks to use innocents as shields," Theron said quietly. "He doesn't understand what he's awakened." "We can't risk their lives," Elara protested weakly. "There must be another way." Theron looked down at her, his mate, gray and fatting, barely clinging to life. And something in his expression shifted. "There is," he said, "but you won't like it." "Tell me." "Aldrich wants you. He believes killing you will somehow reverse the damage to House Darkmoor's position, if we offer him what he wants." "No," Marcus's voice cut through like a blade. "Absolutely not." But Elara understood. "You want to use me as bait." Theron's eyes were anguished. "I want you to do nothing of the sort, but I know you, Elara. I've watched you for 12 years, even when I didn't understand why." His voice dropped. "You won't hide while innocents die in your name." He was right. She hated that he was right. "Then we do this together," she said firmly. "Whatever happens in there, we face it as one." Theron pressed his lips to her forehead. "Together," he agreed. The great hall of the Obsidian Keep had become a prison. Elara entered on trembling legs, Theron's hand steady on her elbow. The hostages knelt in rows before the raised dais, 37 wolves with bound hands and terrified eyes. At their front, Isolde's silver head was bowed, blood crusting a wound on her temple. And on the throne that should have held a king, Aldrich Darkmoor lounged with the arrogance of a man who believed he'd already won. "The witch and her puppet," he called out mockingly. "How touching that you came to surrender yourselves." "I've come to offer an exchange," Elara's voice carried across the hall despite her weakness. "Release the hostages, take me in their place." Murmurs rippled through the Darkmoor soldiers lining the walls. Aldrich's eyebrows rose. "You would sacrifice yourself for asterisk servants." "I would do what is right." Elara stepped forward, pulling away from Theron's steadying grip. "Let them go, Aldrich. Your quarrel is with me, not them." For a long moment, Aldrich studied her. Then a slow smile spread across his face. "Very well. Guards, release the prisoners." He rose from the throne, drawing a sword that gleamed with sickly iridescence. "But I think I'll keep the king here as well. Watching his mate die should break whatever hold you have over him." The hostages were herded toward the doors. Isolde cast one desperate glance back at Elara. Then they were gone. The great doors slammed shut. Elara stood alone before the dais, facing Aldrich and his 20 remaining soldiers. Theron's fury blazed through the bond. She felt him fighting the guards who'd seized him the moment the exchange was made. Any last words? Aldrich raised his poisoned blade. Elara looked past him to where Theron struggled against his captors. Their eyes met. And through the bond, she felt him reaching for her, not with hands, but with something deeper, something that had been building since the moment he first denied their connection. The incomplete bond. It was dying, she was dying. But it didn't have to end this way. Complete it, Theron's voice resonated in her mind. Take what you need from me, all of it, everything I am. It could kill you, she protested. I would rather die bonded to you than live another moment apart. Elara closed her eyes and opened herself to the bond completely. Comment bond if you're ready to see the most epic transformation in wolf history. Power crashed into her like a tidal wave. Not just Theron's strength, but the strength of every wolf bound to him. The entire kingdom of Silvermoor channeled through their alpha king into the mate he'd finally, fully accepted. Her body ignited. Golden light exploded from her skin, so bright that Aldrich stumbled backward with a cry of shock. The fatting that had ravaged her for months reversed in an instant. Color flooded back into her cheeks. Strength surged through her limbs, her magic roaring to heights she'd never imagined. And beneath it all, something else stirred. Her wolf. Elara had never shifted. Common-born wolves often couldn't, their bloodlines too diluted. But she was no longer common. She was bonded to an alpha king. The transformation took her like a storm. Bones shifted, muscles reformed. Fur the color of burnished gold erupted across her skin. When she opened her eyes again, she stood on 4 legs, her vision sharper, her senses exploding with information. She was magnificent. Aldrich's sword trembled in his grip. Impossible. Common wolves can't. Elara lunged. Her jaws closed around his sword arm before he could strike, her new strength crushing bone and steel together. He screamed. The poisoned blade clattered uselessly to the floor. Behind her, Theron had broken free of his captors. His black wolf form joined her golden one. And together, they faced the Darkmoor soldiers. It wasn't a battle. It was a reckoning. The moment when you finally claim your power, when you stop shrinking yourself and become who you were always meant to be. Have you had that moment? Are you still waiting for it? Tell us in the comments, because this transformation isn't just about Elara, it's about all of us. Moonlight streamed through the windows of the royal chambers. Elara stood before the mirror, still marveling at her reflection. The fatting had reversed completely. She looked like herself again. No, she looked better than herself. She looked like a queen. The door opened behind her, and Theron's reflection joined hers in the glass. The council has confirmed it, he said quietly. House Darkmoor is dissolved, their lands distributed among the loyal houses. Aldrich and Seraphine will face execution at dawn. Elara nodded slowly. She couldn't find it in herself to mourn them. Not after everything they'd taken. And the poison. The healers believe it will clear from my system within a few months. Already I feel more than I have in 40 years. His hands settled on her shoulders, warm and steady. I feel you. Elara turned to face him. The bond saved me, she said. If you hadn't opened yourself completely. I should have done it months ago, years ago. His forehead pressed against hers. I wasted so much time being afraid. We both did. Elara's hands came up to cup his face. I could have approached you, could have told you what I felt instead of hiding in shadows. You were protecting yourself from rejection. I was protecting myself from hope, she smiled sadly. I think we were both cowards in our own ways. Theron's arms wrapped around her, pulling her close. No more cowardice, no more hiding. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. From this moment forward, we face everything together. Everything, she agreed. Elara, his voice dropped, becoming softer, more vulnerable. I haven't said the words. I should have said them the moment I recognized you. I should have shouted them from the rooftops instead of running from them. What words? His hands framed her face with impossible tenderness. I love you. I have loved you since before I knew your name. My wolf recognized you 12 years ago, even through the poison, even through my fear. And I will spend the rest of my existence making up for the time we lost. Tears spilled down Elara's cheeks. I love you too. I have always loved you. Theron kissed her softly this time, reverently, like a prayer made flesh. When they parted, his eyes had shifted to molten gold. The bond must be completed properly, he murmured. With the claiming bite, will you accept me, Elara, not just as your mate, but as your king, your partner, your home? In answer, Elara tilted her head, baring her throat. Theron's teeth sank into the junction of her neck and shoulder. The completed bond exploded between them like a universe being born. Elara gasped as Theron's essence poured into her, his memories, his emotions, his very soul intertwining with her own. She saw herself through his eyes, not a servant or a burden, but a miracle. The woman who'd waited for him when anyone else would have given up, his heart walking outside his body. And he saw himself through hers, not a coward or a fool, but a man who'd survived unimaginable trauma with his capacity to love somehow intact. Her mate, her home. When the claiming was complete, they held each other in the moonlight, both trembling with the force of what had passed between them. My queen, Theron whispered against her hair. My king, Elara answered. Outside, across the kingdom of Silvermoor, wolves lifted their voices in a howl of celebration. The bond between alpha and mate resonated through every wolf in the realm, bringing with it a sense of completion that had been missing for over 40 years. Their king had finally found his heart. This is the story of Elara and Theron, two people who loved each other across impossible distance, through manipulation and poison, through rejection and dying, until they finally found their way home to each other. But it's also your story, because we've all been Elara at some point, loving someone from a distance, wondering if we'll ever be seen. And some of us have been Theron, so afraid of being hurt that we hurt the people who love us most. The question is, what will you do with your story? Will you keep hiding in the shadows, or will you step into the light? Will you let fear win, or will you choose love, even when it terrifies you? Tell us in the comments. Share your story, because someone out there needs to hear it. Someone out there is dying from an incomplete bond of their own, waiting for permission to hope. Be that permission. And if this story moved you, if it made you feel something, hit that subscribe button, because there are more stories like this. More tales of impossible love and second chances and bonds that refuse to break. You don't want to miss them. Until next time, may you find your mate, complete your bond, and never, ever give up on love.